are things that people outside of tech like they hear about. Oh, nice save. Okay.
Welcome to RegTech.
Yay.
This is where we indulge in bites and banter. We'll start off with introductions. I'm Saloni, a software engineer.
I'm Victoria, Solutions Engineer.
And I'm Natasha, a software engineer.
Yes, and today we'll be talking about some common debates that we have in our tech life, tech culture. So, let's start off with like the very, very obvious one, which always has a binary when it comes to like software people. It is light mode versus dark mode. So let's start with like Victoria, what's your preferred mode? Dark mode.
Actually, we should start with like describing what this actually means.
Oh yes.
I think a lot of people might think that it's just like switching on the night mode and the whatever.
No, it
mode.
applies to everything. Even like VS Code theme. So like the
Yes.
code editor I use, it'll be all full on dark.
And
right?
now even Chrome web browsers have a dark mode, light mode. So we're talking about
YouTube.
that kind of dark mode, light mode.
Yeah, and I think this is important for people who are in tech because we deal with our computers so much. It's literally our bread and butter. That this preference for light mode versus dark mode, which actually pertains a lot more to the code editors we use, yes. But at the same time, like you said, it's more of like in general, what kind of mode do you prefer your computer to be in? And I realize this is not just like a tech debate, right? I think everybody has their own preference.
It's a generic
It's
debate.
just more prevalent in tech because I think a lot of people, when they watch like popular media on like hackers and stuff, all they see is the dark mode. It's always like dark mode, but actually everybody has a preference, and it's very similar to like your own personal preference for a computer. But yeah,
I think when anyone like think of the word software engineer, they imagine a dark room, and then they are on the dark computer, dark mode, and I fit into that stereotype.
I do.
you do.
I do too. It's just that
My room is dark.
my room is not dark, but my computer is quite dark with its terminals and like my code editor is dark. But surprisingly, my Chrome is light mode.
Oh
Yeah, so
why do you think that? Oh, it's just like default, and you just don't want to like touch it.
I have touched it before. I've tried dark mode on Chrome, but then it started looking very gloomy, like too much gloomy.
Too much.
I don't know. It's just I prefer my code editor in dark mode, but everything else should be light and colored. Like I have a purple theme MacBook, so all the windows that opens the tile above is purple color.
Actually,
My purple shirt. Oh yes, purple is my favorite color.
and now that you mention it, right, I'm really 100% dark. Like back before Chrome has that release that there's the dark mode, I have to hard code my OS software so that everything open will be dark.
You hard coded
Like there's like a
operating
custom
system.
Chrome
Yes,
that
yes,
you
you
can
can put
open
the
in
settings.
Windows settings. Dark.
Oh.
So
Everything will be dark.
yeah, but it's like not the
Like the
official
system-wide,
technical.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
even my Windows, like the operating system, like usually it will be white with the accent color. Yours is purple.
Yeah.
Mine's just dark, and then the blue accent.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Oh, both of you are dark mode with one Chrome that's purple, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm majority light actually, but mine actually differs in terms of time of day and like my mood. So majority of the time, like if I'm using my desktop especially, it's on light mode. My code editors are usually on light mode, but it can't just be like the hard white, high contrast white like light mode. It has to have some sort of color to it that's like more soft and I think usually pastel in like nature. So I have this like more beigey color theme that I use, as well as a more purplish kind of pastel
Can
purple.
we like put a screenshot of what your
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Oh, did we do it in our intros?
Yeah,
We did it on Instagram, like on our social
Yeah.
media. So, but I don't know if anyone noticed that. Like,
Yeah,
I think we
that's
can put it
actually
one more
our-
time in like.
It's actually our
ours.
theme.
Yes. Okay, we will put like little snippets up on like this podcast just for fun.
Yes.
But yeah, I think in terms of code editor, that's usually my go-to. But I realized like once the sun sets, maybe because of eye strain or I don't know what, or things become brighter, I would change it to dark mode.
There you
like
go.
for code editor. But I think like for all the things outside of code editor, my entire phone is like dark mode. But I think I
Mine
started
too, mine.
with I put like system-wide dark mode for everything. I think a lot of it was to save battery. Actually, I read somewhere that because you're not using like a lot more electricity in dark mode, so I use that. But I've just kind of gotten used to it, and that's also like scrolling at night with all like I even have an additional app to like reduce the brightness even lower than the system brightness.
Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that when I use my phone at night, I don't like strain.
Oh, that's good.
But
That's good.
yeah.
I actually do remember this one time where I was working on my computer, and when I referred to my colleague's computer, he's using light mode on the editor. I was like, "Ow, my eye!" My eye. I wasn't like dramatizing it. It was actually quite painful to look at it because I was like in my dark mode, editor mode, and suddenly I'm looking at his screen, like,
Oh my god.
Oh, my eyes!
my eyes.
I actually can relate to that
friends
because I have
were-
a similar story.
Yeah.
And I was just passing by the desk, not even like looking to see the code, and I can see something very white and bright, and I like, ooh,
It's
whatever.
like your eyes are not accustomed to it.
Yeah,
It's
whatever
like,
that is, I don't want to look at the screen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, but that's
true.
so
But
relatable.
there's always this common stereotype, like all the tech memes that you see, everybody's scared of the light mode person. I think this is a stereotype. It's like majority of us, I think, use like dark mode most of the time, but that one person that uses light mode, especially the high contrast white background light mode, it's just like, we fear you. Either that or we detest you. Who is that person? Like, can you imagine walking in an office and everybody like has their computers on, but you will always know that one person
That's
using
white.
light mode.
Light mode.
Yes.
Yeah. But of course we don't want to like say like light mode. No. Like I'm all for like people's own preferences.
Yeah.
I like how you also mentioned you adjust based on the time of day. I think that's actually a healthy way to do it, like to have best of both worlds, because I know that when I'm too immersed in darkness, I forgot to open my curtain.
You don't know if you stay or not.
Yeah, like I have to look at the clock at the bottom
So you
right.
literally like blackout curtains and then you just work.
Put on the hoodie.
I mean, I don't have hoodies too hot, but
Oh yes,
Singapore.
Singapore.
yeah, but I would see the clock so I know what time it is.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I really need to work with the sun in general. Like I just actually feel unproductive if I don't know like what time of day it is. So it like you scare me. The fact that like you like blackout curtains and then you just work and you only look at the clock.
But
That's
I
your
like
only
it's
indication.
like dark and I'll light a candle. Wow, it's so cozy. Like I mean that's just how I prefer to work.
That's so extra. I'm so
My
sorry.
yeah, I know I'm extra, but then some people would like come in my room and open the curtain and I'll be like so what I do to mitigate this, because I know like there's the importance of balancing, right, which I think you are great at. So what I try to do to be less dark is I just got myself a plant.
What? Explain.
When you
Salome, she has no word.
I'm just like,
because when you got yourself a plant, the plant needs the sun.
Oh!
So I will remember to like I was in my dark room one day and I saw one leaf fall. And I'm like, oh, I
It's too
forgot to
dark.
bring it out. So I open my curtains like 10 centimeters and I give it the sun.
It's the best thing ever.
But that's why
that's one use of the plant.
if you see my blog in my about page, I put my coding environment dark, and I mean it literally. Some people think I just put it there, but no.
No, you're like dark screen, dark room, dark everything.
Yeah, so I'm like the stereotype. But
Interesting.
I'm trying to be less of that. So I'm trying to learn, from you, the sun.
Does this hurt your eyes?
That's why actually this is a common TMI within my team, is that if I stay in the office too long, I will be so drained because the office lights are so white. I will go into like a random booth like in the office that's dark and I'll just recharge there for a while.
Wow.
Okay, come out.
You're reverse photosynthesizing. Oh my god.
I don't know why.
But you do know that you need the sun, right? Vitamin D is important.
That's why I take vitamin D.
Oh my god.
I do have it on my desk, 2 bottles. So one is like the capsule form and one is like the milky candy form. So,
Those are the things that like people in like London have to eat just to not get like seasonal depression. But you're literally imposing that on yourself and you're like, okay.
That's why I've not been sick. Technically, I'm okay because I have my vitamins. but yeah, I know it's very bad habit, so I'm trying to like
It's a new thing I'm
them.
learning about Victoria. I love it. Like when I started a conversation on light mode versus dark mode, I didn't know she was like at that other extreme.
I am the definition
of dark mode.
of dark mode.
I don't know, it's me. I wear dark clothes.
I would have imagined that was you.
Yeah.
More, actually, but for you, you're just. She's like you're like neutral dark.
Yeah.
She's chaotic, like unlawful dark.
I'm unhinged dark.
Unhinged. I need to see that plan. Every day we need to check in on that plan.
You should see before and after. Before the plant was so full of leaves, and now it's like it's
surviving.
Like a coconut.
You see how many plants I have there? Oh my god!
That's your motivation. It's much. But I don't have enough. I only have one, but it already looks like a palm tree because only the two upper leaves are like.
Okay.
It's okay.
Getting back to the light mode versus dark mode. So what we have realized is that personal preferences. Usually, it is a stereotype that developers do use dark mode because I guess it's the perception that we see, right? Like usually screens are dark, and and there are a few developers that do use the light mode, and we judge them. but it's totally it depends what your eyes can take, how if it's better for you to read through, because depends how long you're spending on the computer as well and things like that. So that's always going to be a debate, I think.
But because it's personal. Not all developers use dark mode.
Oh, yes.
We have light mode users,
Definitely.
we have hybrid users, and we have very extreme dark mode users.
Yes.
And some people ask me, how does your eye work in the dark, right? So I have blue light filter on these glasses.
Yes.
And
we all need that.
blue light filter on this phone. So everything
phone, by the way.
So that's how I keep my eyes from being so strained. And I think whether you're a light mode person or dark mode person, you can do things to keep your eyes healthy, right? So ultimately, it's about preference and keeping eyes healthy.
And having like healthy habits of taking eye breaks as well. You should be looking away from screens and things like that.
Look at greenery.
Yes.
Yes.
Not just at one plant, greenery.
Everywhere.
Exactly.
Nice.
Okay.
Who knew this topic would bring us here? But that was hilarious. I love that I found out so much more about you today.
Such a TMI though.
Love it. Okay, on to the next debate.
The next one that we have is startup versus MAANG.
MAANG. Do you want to define what
Yes. So where this comes in is usually when we are as techies, as we are trying to look for a new job to switch to or to join. Should we join a startup, which is a new company starting out, where you will get much more things to do, much more things to learn, a little bit more chaotic, less structure. Maybe there's only 2 to 3 engineers in the beginning, versus a MAANG, which is even for MAANG there is the top tier, which would be the MAANG, which is Meta, Amazon, Netflix.
I don't know why Netflix is there. Actually, that was always my question. Why is Netflix there?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's actually there.
They use recommendation systems.
So fun fact, why is MAANG, right? Why are these companies in the MAANG? It's actually because of their share value. So if it's above, it's the top few companies, or it's above a certain thing, I can't remember. So that's why they are MAANG. So that's why it actually changes sometimes. So Microsoft is also there, Amazon, Airbnb, I think it came in once, and then I don't know if it's still there. So so there's this bunch of companies, and then there's also the mid-tier ones, which would be Sony and things like that. So they are also there, and then there are also a few lower tier ones.
So it's just like an umbrella, MAANG is just an umbrella term to talk about really big,
high share value
tech-driven companies,
tech functions.
Correct. So now, why is it even a startup versus this thing? Is because the experience you get working in a startup or working in MAANG or even a mid-tier company would be very different.
Yes.
So you have to decide what you want and how it works. So would any of you like to share some pros cons of like working in startup, working in MAANG.
Maybe I can start first. So I literally encountered this situation early in my career where I was offered 2 jobs, one in a startup and one in a very highly valued public company. So I asked the interviewer a lot of questions that day. I remember I was as if I'm interviewing the interviewer because I wanted to know what are the advantages and disadvantages. And I recognize there's a trade-off. So I just want to be transparent in that process, that saying that I do have a job offer right now. So I'm just considering you as one of the options. It took me a while to I created a pros and cons table. That's my style. And I realized that what I value in startup is you get to really be a voice. Your voice is more likely to be heard in such a small team, and you get to take on different roles. So it is definitely less structured and chaotic, as you mentioned, but if it's something that you want to start learning right away, that is something that you would maybe want to choose startup for, basically. Like, you want to learn a lot of things at once quickly, and you need to be able to adapt fast, and then you like that fast-paced culture. And then the next one is the bigger company. So that one you'll have more structure. You'll go into the company, there's a nice onboarding process for you, you'll probably have a buddy assigned, and everything just seems so natural. It's like orientation when you first go into university, right? So institutional, so if you want that kind of like, oh, this is the right way to onboard, this is the right structure to have, to have HR dealing with HR things for you, then
everyone wears their own hats and you just do what you are scoped to do.
So the thing about that is that eventually you'll get quite specialized in that skill. So if that's something what you're looking to build, like being specialized and like really only focusing on doing one thing at a time, then that is maybe the reason why you might choose a bigger company. So at the end of the day, I chose to go with like a bigger company first. It's just my personal preference, just because I want to find out like a structure, what is a normal like a scalable organization will look like, what does a products that has been scaled look like, and how are they assigned like tasks to different people, how is the organization structured, and how things work in a bigger organization. So that's just my personal preference, but I'm definitely curious what you guys have to say about this.
I think for me, it's kind of strange to also kind of describe my own experience, because I've been in startups and I am in a big organization right now, but that big organization doesn't have a structure and process around what to do with the technical roles in their business function. So I ended up kind of being a startup within a large organization. But in terms of like both of your experiences where you are already in a business where the tech functions are a heavy part of that domain, and it's a big company, so there's established processes around how like product teams work and stuff like that. I haven't been in that scenario, but I have this more hybrid scenario where I know how like a big organization with structures and processes around established business functions work, but at the same time they don't have established functions around the technical side of things. So I ended up doing a startup. So in terms of that experience, because I've kind of had that, I would say very clearly that for myself, personal preference wise, I know I thrive in more of a startup kind of culture. That's where my main skill set lies. That's where my personality thrives the best in. Because before I went into software engineering as a formal role, I was holding a different kind of position in a big organization where there were structures and processes already before I went to college, actually. And I knew I didn't really like that process where my personality is that I question everything. If things don't seem right, I want to be able to raise questions, and I hope that these questions seed thoughts in people. And my intuition is that this should kind of bring people together, and we should get together to solve that problem and change that structure and process. But I think with an established organization, or at least for the organization I was in and am in right now, there wasn't a culture around that, and I felt very different from everybody else. So I could identify that, but at that point of time, I didn't know what other options were available for me out there. Then when I started to do my own startup and then eventually know what it's like working at a structure, I realized I like moving fast in small teams where everybody is aligned to the same goal. I like having like autonomy as well, and having the freedom to have different ideas and solve a lot of problems in a fast-paced team with people I know and trust, rather than having to relate them to a larger organizational objective that isn't even like clear to me in the first place. And also I just realized I'm really bad at like fighting politics. I don't know if both of you like experience this in your organizations, but in a big organization with a lot of different people and individuals, different stakeholders have different goals, and it's very difficult to align them into one organizational goal, especially when they have different interpretations of it. And I realized that seeds a lot of like I don't want to say unprofessional behavior, but just behavior I don't understand, because I'm a very rational and logical individual. So for all those reasons, I knew I wasn't gonna thrive in that environment. But I've carved a space for myself in this large environment to build a startup and an isolated little bubble to practice and build an environment like a startup that I knew I would thrive in. So yeah, I know like I went into a lot of that to explain, but I think this is also a reflective process for me. Like now, if I look towards like what do I want to do next, I kind of know I don't want to work in MAANG actually. Unless the offer that was put on the table was more of like, can you start like a startup within like the larger company, maybe an R&D or like a pathfinder kind of position. Yeah, I would definitely consider that. But I think top of my head, definitely being in a startup or starting my own startup would be the best fit for my personality, and that's where I will thrive. So yeah, I think the conversation on startup versus MAANG, for me, it's a very clear preference only because I've gone through the process of understanding how it looks like. But I think for you literally were offered those two options on the table. So it's kind of interesting that at that point, because you did it, that was your first job, right? At that point, sort of.
Yeah, like basically, it was my first job in tech. So that's something like I wanted to explore first, like on a bigger scale, and then maybe in the future I would move to that kind of startup culture. So in a way, I don't have like a strong preference. Like you are very sure that you would want a startup culture.
It was your
Whereas
first
for me,
tech job.
it would depend on like my current goals at the time, and it would depend on what I want to learn and want to focus on at the time.
Yeah, like that. What you want to learn.
Yeah. What about?
So I've worked in a startup before. I've never worked in like the MAANG, but maybe a mid-tier company. Truthfully speaking, I always wanted to be in MAANG because it comes with its prestige. It comes with the high pay and working with like imagine like the interview process is so difficult to get into those companies that if you do get in, you are one of the top few people around. So I wanted that for myself. But over time, I realized, like, especially with like COVID, like all the tech layoffs happening now, I realized I always thought that if I got into a MAANG company, it would be a very stable job and high-paying stable job.
This is very important.
Working with people in that sorts. But then when these tech layoffs happen, it's like okay, nothing is stable. Nothing can be taken for granted. So that's when kind of like I started like taking the place where I'm at more for value, that okay, I don't have to be in those kind of companies to have that kind of prestige and things like that. I can also find that in the other companies which are not mentioned in MAANG, but they're also neighbors to that or like a little bit lower or something. So it's not all about the name. Also I've worked in a startup. I would not like to conclude my experience with startups with just because I've worked in one startup. So it was very interesting. I actually, like you mentioned, you get to wear different hats, you have a say, but also there are also downsides to that because there wasn't a structure, we would do things like in a hacky way, for example, get things out ASAP, don't test that much, don't write tests, maybe just test it out. If it works, it will work for the customer, and like so things like that. So if like a new graduate comes in and they ask, should I join a startup or a MAANG, I would say depends. Both have pros and cons. Just know that what you'll be losing out in a startup and what you'll be losing out in a MAANG, and I would say try both in your career, and then
eventually try both.
Eventually, you should try both and learn both sides of it.
Yes.
Because the pros from startup, if you bring it to your large scale company, it would also benefit. If you bring your structured, your best practices that you have the liberty to practice in a big company to a startup, you also bring a lot of value to that aspect. And also like your goals in life. If you eventually want to be opening your own startup or something, maybe startup is the better route for you. Experiment that way. If you are okay with a corporate job, or if you like structure in your life, things like that, the large scale companies might be better for you. But definitely, like if you ask me, I think I had a very wrong perception of like MAANG, prestige, name. Like only with experience I understood that. So I think it's a rite of passage everyone goes through. So yeah, both have their pros and cons.
I think that's a very nice way to wrap. Basically, is understanding what you're trading off. You know, when you're choosing one decision over the another.
And like I know we went from light mode to dark mode, and then now we're like so serious startup. But it actually like goes back to the same essence of it's actually based on preference and what suits you better, right? But in the first place, you have to experience both.
Correct.
So it's a rite of passage. There doesn't have to be an order for it. I think I heard like there was this first year university student who told me like the common conception is that you should start in a big company first for internship, and then maybe do like sort of there is no order. You just have to experience both and see like what you thrive in and what your personal preference in is. Just like with light mode and dark mode, you wouldn't know like which is better for you if you don't try both.
And we also don't want to emphasize that it's all about like this binary, right? There's always something in between,
hybrid.
So like probably what you're
example.
experiencing, or even like SMEs, so they already have structure and like still developing their tech team and all that. So there's always something in the middle, right? It's whatever that suits you, and it's actually technically a spectrum. Just in this episode, we want to make it more like a fun debate.
Debate like versus. I love that.
But definitely, there's always the middle ground. So it's really up to you.
I think we have time for like one more.
One quick and dirty one.
So this is something we mentioned in my episode that we did, where I talked about full stack development and how there's front end and back end. So some people will lean more towards front end development, and some people will lean more towards back end development. So before we begin, I'll just define like front end development would be client facing, for example, websites. So the website that you see, a front end developer would have created, would have implemented those components that you see on your website. Even
the titles, like the colors,
the titles,
the
colors, like usually front end developers will work with a designer to get the UX UI of it, and versus back end developer would be someone who would create the databases, the servers, the back end logic to like for example, if you sign in, so the back end developer would make the sign in portion of it, and then return cookies and things like that to the front, and save data in the database, and then show the data back to the front, and then the front end would show it in a nice manner, in a list format, in a table format, things like that. So that's front end, back end. There are different languages used for different developers, but I think that's what I think, that everyone would lean towards one. You can't be best of both worlds. Or you could be best of both worlds, but not jack of all trades, not master. So we're still leaning towards one.
I feel like I wouldn't classify myself as like strictly front end or back end, but I also feel very uncomfortable with the term full stack, because yes, the truth is I have done both front end and back end. But what does it mean to be full stack? I think full stack is basically somebody who knows both, knows how to code in both like frameworks, but at the same time, what does knowing mean? does it mean like you have 50% competence in both? I've always wondered. This is really just open question. I just really don't know. Or does it mean that I do heavy front end, but I've dabbled in like some back end? So I've always been confused by that. But if you're talking about inclinations, I think I would incline more front end, as in terms of like the actual work that I've done in front end. But I also really love the process of designing like the databases. But in terms of the actual work that I've done in that, I think comparatively time spent, there is an imbalance there. But it's very hard for me to part one or the other. I enjoy both processes, and I think it activates like different parts of my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's for me. So, but if I had to say one, I would just like, okay, fine, front end, I guess. Yeah, but for you, like.
So I mentioned, like I do call myself full stack developer. It's because I say that for myself because I have done front end development quite a bit, and I've done back end development quite a bit. Currently, I'm doing more back end development. So, like currently, I am leaning on back end more. But if you ever do put me in like a React.js front end project, I will be able to catch on pretty quickly. Maybe I'm not up to date with like the latest React version and its nuances, but I would be able to understand it if given some time with Google access, right? So I would call that full stack, but then also knowing that I do lean towards backend because that's where I'm more comfortable in right now.
I do like your definition of a full stack because it's about code comprehension, right? So if you can comprehend both sides, that kind of means that you have the skills to understand like, the logic, how both sides work.
Correct.
So that's kind of a good definition of what full stack means. I always find it also, it's very hard to be an expert at both things. That's why you also mentioned how you tend to incline to one because it's so hard. It's not like you can monitor yourself that you do things equally, right? 50-50 of the time. And that was the same for me when I was starting my journey in software engineering. I started with front end just because it's visual. It's easier for me to see and understand.
Tangible.
And I received this question, are you a front end or back end, from my readers a lot. And if you notice in my blog, I write a lot of front end, like React, because it's just easier to show. Like in my
you have something to show.
Exactly.
Like I would like show them, this is how you implement like a scroll element. There, I have a nice demo for you to see like visually. But if you're talking about interests or like what I actually might like, I would enjoy backend more, just because when I'm really sitting down and coding and get into the flow state, like backend just seems so rewarding. Like, it activates a different part of my brain that I would be like, I would find it joyful almost, like when I code like after a back-end session. Versus front end, sometimes I'll be like, it triggers my perfectionism for front end. Because I'll be like, the padding not enough.
I feel like I wasted time in front end with very little reward. But that's also a fun part of the process too. So like you said, activates different part of the brain, and especially for like the non-techie folks out there, I wanted to draw a comparison in this like whole front end and back end thing. But it's kind of like I don't know, say like cooking. Cooking, there's two parts of the process: the actual like you prepare the ingredients part of it, and then you cook and plate it. So I would say like the preparing ingredients part of it, where you chop and you dice and stuff like that. It's kind of like backend. It's the unseen part. That's not what people eating the food would instinctively know when they see the food. But then front end is kind of like the plating part of the process, where you arrange the cooked items already out there, and that's what the client, the user, sees. But if you were to ask the chef, like, which part of the process do you prefer? He'll just look at you like, well, what do you mean? It's all part of the same process. But I think, in a very organized kitchen, not that I've like been in like an organized kitchen before, I assume that this role is divided into two because it's just more efficient. So a person would naturally like do one thing more than another because of the division of labor. But it's not so much of like, do they have a preference? Because it's like, it's part of the whole process. So that's kind of how I see this whole thing, and I love what both of you have kind of brought out, that it's about code comprehension. Actually, now that you think about it, like, actually the fact that you can comprehend both like the preparing of the ingredients and then like the presenting, why it's important to the whole process, you know, and like it's also dependent on the current role that you're in. You know, if you happen to be doing more backend heavy stuff, I guess like for now I will identify as a backend developer, but at the end of the day, it is a preference and it is a circumstance of your external factors right now. It's actually part of the same process.
So whichever one you're more inclined to, just enjoy the process.
Just enjoy the process.
Just have fun, right?
Just have fun.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, they might get stressed out about it, right? Like, let's say there has been situations I've heard from acquaintances where they're from a back end role and then they're forced to do front end stuff.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, and they end up not enjoying it at all. But if you tell them like, oh, there's some things to enjoy in front end, like they will actually slowly discover it over time. It just takes some time for different people, but there's always something, like if you have an open mind and like you say like, oh, there's things that I can enjoy in both processes, you know, you'll eventually find something that you can like. But of course, maybe there's a preference there, but you can still find something basically. So at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't matter what you are. You know?
I was thinking like at the end of the day, it's still just coding. You're still solving some issues, some problem.
Logical problem.
And I actually find it like hard to be good at both at the same time, because there's like advancements happening in the backend world where, you know, there's a new database, there's a new concept to understand, there's a new way of architecting your backend, and then on the front end there's a new library, a new framework with its now the new framework comes with new things which you can use to do things even quicker, even shorter lines of code. So you have to be up to date with both of it. So I personally prefer to stay on one side. Just that, because it is big enough in itself already.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what it is. But some people can do both. I know of some really good full stack developers who are like able to provide input here and in the backend as well. So there are all different kinds of people everywhere.
All kinds of chefs.
Exactly.
Yes, all kinds of chefs.
Cooking code.
If anything, like I know we have had like 3 sort of like major myths sort of debates kind of debunked, but it wasn't really a debunking. It was really like showing that these things, there are stereotypes attached to each, but at the end of the day, it's down to preference. There is no right or wrong answer for anything, and even in the tech industry, nobody inclines to one more than another. You might see it displayed in popular media in a certain way majority of the time, but you know, every developer is different, every engineer is different, every person in the tech industry is different. So that's what I've come to realize from this conversation, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I like how we went from like super fun and bantery to like really serious, like
I mean, technically they're all just fun topics, but it depends how we articulate them sometimes as well. We just want to be sincere in how we like actually word it out, because we don't want people to get the wrong idea. Right? It's binary or like anything like that. That's why sometimes we get serious, and it's also because we're passionate in talking about this. So that's why. So
hope everyone benefited from this episode, and do subscribe to us, follow us, and do all the socials. Comment on our episodes to let us know what else you would like us to talk about, or if you have some opinion that we would be interested to know about regarding these 3 topics that we talked about today. And thank you. This is RagTech.
Yay! Bye.
Bye.